Welcome to the Dying Your Way podcast, and welcome to my dear longtime friend, Beau Weaver. He is someone I'm so excited to have on this podcast today and have all of the listeners get to know. Beau is
what is he? It's kind of hard to say what this guy is. I mean, what could he be? He looks like a homeless guy.
Well, let me have a chance.
What could he actually be? You know?
He is one of the most spiritual beings that I know. I mean, when we have connected as friends for decades, and it really is because he's like a soul brother to me. And we've had some experiences working together around death and dying, specifically with a friend that he introduced me to that I worked with years ago. And I wanted to highlight in this podcast how important friendship is to the dying person and the effects that the friend experiences when they are confronted with a dear person dying. Often it's not dissimilar to a family member because often we're disassociated from our family and our friends are our family. But before we get into our discussion, I just want to let you know who Beau is. He is a major voice talent in Los Angeles, and his voice is heard like Hanna-Barbera. He played Superman. He's done so many animated voiceovers, and he's
a lot of people, if you're not somebody who works in media and the entertainment business, voiceover, what is that?
And, okay, just listen to his voice and you'll know. Go ahead, tell us.
No, but a lot, and I still have this trouble explaining to my relatives back in Oklahoma what it is I do. So they, I let them know, I'm narrating this documentary series on the Discovery Channel, and they say, "Well, now, honey, we watched that show you said you were on, and we didn't see you." Well, no, you see, I'm the narrator. I am voice over where, and said, "Well, now, when is that?" And I said, "Well, when you hear a voice talking, but you don't see somebody's mouth moving, that's me. It's off camera." And they go, "Well, honey, maybe if you cut your hair, they would let you on the camera." And I'm like, "No, it's not that I'm trying to be on camera and they won't let me. It's, hey, never mind. It's just kind of hard to explain." But at any rate, there's a whole world of work for performers whose faces are not seen. And in my case,
But you started off as a disc jockey, right?
Yes, I fell in love with radio.
Let's just go ahead and say it.
What?
Hall & Oates exists because of you.
Nah, no, I fell in love with radio when I was really young, and got my start as an on-air personality when I was 15 years old. And I could just weasel my way in, and then eventually found that there were other ways for professional voice to make a living in Hollywood, and so I've been doing that ever since.
You've been doing your voice work in your own home studio for how many years since you moved?
Since the early 80s. Yeah.
So the coronavirus isn't necessarily affecting your work life.
All of my work is done from home, and sometimes the client, the director at the network, the studio, is on the line with me directing, and sometimes I do it unsupervised and just get them the recording. But I do it all day long, and that's my customary way of working. So this isn't any different than normal.
I'm just curious, have you had, I'm kind of changing the subjects a little bit here, but do you know anybody that's personally been affected by the coronavirus?
Not me specifically. There's a men's group that I'm working with, a men's spiritual group, and we meet online, like this. And one of them he's in New York, and he just lost his brother-in-law. I'm in the little town of Ojai, California, which is between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. It's kind of an artsy little community, about 15,000 in the Ojai Valley. And we've got 5 known cases.
Wow.
So we're relatively safe, but we're taking precautions very seriously. And, because we can shed virus, even if we're not symptomatic, we're taking it on like we're taking care of other people by wearing masks and socially distancing. And
we're in Western Australia in Bustleton, and there's literally regions in Western Australia that are closed to other regions of Western Australia.
Mhm.
And they're, if you get caught crossing that region for a non-legitimate person, there's like a $50,000 fine for that. So they have really done well with how they've contained the virus, and it's taken not as seriously, I think, in the United States, just because they don't have the outbreak that they do in the United States. But the laws or the regulations that they've put down, it's really made the people within regions be able to, social distance and go to the beach, social distance and have neighborhood parties and Anzac Day and stuff like that. So it's really been kind of lovely. In some ways, it's just been a great time.
Well, it's been an interesting time because it focuses the attention, and I assume this is true for Australia, but in our culture, death is hidden from us, because we don't live multi-generationally like we used to. We don't see people progressing through aging and dying, and it's hidden from us, and it's right in our face right now.
Right.
And this is a good thing. This is a good thing. Knowing that there is a beginning and a middle and an end to our life makes it important.
Yeah.
And I'm really finding it useful to one of the things I've done integrated into my own little daily practice. Now I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not an anythingist right now. I have a number of spiritual practices and understandings that kind of blend together in a stew that makes sense to me and would make absolutely no sense to anybody else. But I don't care because it's mine. But one of the things that I have taken on is as part of my little daily practice is the Buddhist 5 remembrances, and I use a translation by Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yes.
And do you mind if I read those?
No, please do.
Hold on, I'm going to jump up here and grab this off the wall.
The 5 remembrances, you called it?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And it's translated differently, this is Thich Nhat Hanh's version of the 5 remembrances.
I always wondered how to pronounce his name. Say his name again.
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Okay.
And first, I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. And finally, I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. And I repeat that after my little yoga practice every day.
So as you carry that through the day, you're just more aware of the actions and your subsequent karma ripples from those actions?
Well, uh, I don't even.
There's practice. There's practice and there's application.
Yes. I don't even think forward in terms of the karma, if you choose to call it that. It focuses my attention on what I now really know in my heart, in my being, to be true, and that is all there is this. All there is now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the past is a story loosely based on some shit that happened. Oh, I said shit.
That's okay.
I talk like that. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Set me up as being this spiritual guy, and I just said shit on her podcast. I'm so sorry. But that's what you get.
Yeah.
The past is a story, which is largely a piece of creative writing, based around some feelings, and we wrote a story about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the way our ego mind works, we think it's a videotape that we can just rewind and play it back. Wrong. One of the reasons that eyewitness testimony is so not reliable in court, because they find that people's reporting of what happened, if they're reporting on a crime and testifying about a crime, is often influenced by the fact that they saw a CSI episode on TV the night before, and that is what they think happened. So our thing that we call the past is not an actual thing. It's a mental construct. And the future also doesn't exist. It's a story, usually based on fear or some other projection, but it's not out there. It's all in here. And all we actually have is this. And the truth is, one day, I won't be in a body, And for me, just all of the things that I have learned and experienced tells me that that's okay. I had a dream. Did I tell you about the dream that I had?
When are we talking about?
It was about 3 years ago. 4 years ago.
Yeah, go ahead.
We live on a little country lane, and I walk the dogs every morning along this lane. And by the way, I'm not a dream guy. I very seldom remember a dream. Dreams are not my language. It just, most of the time, if I do wake up, need to pee, and I remember a dream, poof, it's gone, and it doesn't mean anything. But this one was so vivid. I'm coming up the lane, as I do every day, several times, and I'm aware that what's coming up the lane
This is dream.
This is the dream.
Okay.
I'm aware that what's coming up the lane is just my awareness, not attached to a body. It's just my awareness coming up the lane, seeing the big eucalyptus tree and the little stone walls, just as I always do. And I get to my house, and there's a large gravel parking area in front of my little studio. And I am above it, looking down. And 3 big black SUVs drive up into the parking lot. And out of these 3 cars, my 3 daughters walk. And they come and they hold each other. They just hold each other, and they cry softly. These girls are just, they so support each other and love each other. And I just was struck with, oh, I have died, and this is my girls coming together for whatever memorial service, whatever, thing they're doing. And just feeling them experience what you, Claire, know it feels like when you lost a parent. And I know what that feels like. And I was just filled with love and compassion for them, going, oh, this is that passage that you go through, that they're experiencing and supporting each other through. But what was really interesting is that there was nothing wrong. This was not a problem. This was not a tragedy. This was not sad. It was just, yes, my heart was full feeling what they were feeling, but it was absolutely as it should be.
Yeah.
And what I was left with is just, when I go, it's going to be okay. And you know what? They will go through that passage you go through when someone close passes, and it will be part of their experience, and it will enrich their life, and it will make them deeper people, and it will enlarge their own love and compassion, and it won't be a problem. So I say this to people sometime who have not come to these kind of realizations, and it makes no sense to them. Dying is not the worst thing that can happen to you.
No. Well, I think one of the things we try to, and your story is great to get this point across, is that death is like any major life event, and it needs to be celebrated or planned for or taken care of in the same way. It's far from the worst. In fact, it may be the best time that we have, those last few moments that we're here on earth in this body and transitioning to another place. A portal opens, and it's absolutely awe-inspiring and a miracle moment, I would call it.
One of the men who mentored me over the years, Claire, I've spent a lot of time with Native American people, learning their ways, and my uncle Glenn used to say, people think that death is the opposite of life. That's not so. Death is the opposite of birth, because both are portals.
Yeah. Oh my God. Really?
But we have it wrong. And there are a whole lot of stories about death, and people who are fundamentalists in whatever their religious tradition might be often think, no, it's exactly like this. This happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. No, it's not like that. We don't have it like that. If people who think they know what that's that specific, don't listen to. All we have is metaphors and poetry and analogies and pictures, because it's so much bigger than anything that we can currently imagine. By the way, I heard one of your podcasts, and I heard you describing how sometimes in Texas, when someone dies, they refer to it as he went south.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I grew up with that.
I was talking about mother and daddy going south at the same time. So
yeah, exactly.
Their health was like going downhill.
Well, we used to use that phrase also, but we would also use it about, we would say, hey, the lawnmower went south. It won't start anymore.
Yeah.
But what you may not know is that, at least from the Plains Native American tradition, going south, making your journey southward, is what they call dying. Because in their cosmology, and when you live out on the plains and there's no light pollution, maybe it's that it must look different in Australia.
Very
but
different. Yeah.
the Milky Way is this incredibly vivid strip across the sky.
Belt, yeah.
And it goes north-south. And at the bottom of it, at the south part, there's a hole. And they say that when your spirit makes its journey, it makes its journey to a hole in the southern Milky Way. So it goes south. And the south direction in the Lakota language is Itohagata, which means the place where the spirits go. So that's really the origin of saying someone went south.
Maybe that means I'm in heaven in Australia. What do you think?
You're way south.
I'm way south. God. Okay, but one of the things, I love what you're saying. One of the things I really wanted to talk to you about is the kind of friendship that not only that you've given to me, but that you have given to others that I know, and you have been a friend to them on their journey through death and dying that has made an incredible difference to many. And one of our groups of people or stakeholders, if you will, that we speak to in Dying Your Way are friends.
Mm-hmm.
And just speak to the audience a little bit about what your experience of being a friend to those who are going south has been, and what your how that experience affects you. Basically, two ways.
I have one friend who I have been, his companion along the journey. We don't live in the same state, but he has a type of pancreatic cancer that nobody's ever seen before, and it's in sort of a dormant state. And 5 years ago, they thought maybe he had about 3 or 4 months, and it was 5 years ago, and it's still in kind of a dormant state, but it's he's in an enormous amount of pain, and it's very difficult. And he has suffered greatly, and his marriage broke up. She just finally could not. His wife just couldn't handle it, and so he's very alone.
Nothing to do with the disease, why she couldn't handle it. There were other issues.
There were definitely other issues, but Claire, you and I tried to steer him toward connecting with a hospice group, mm-hmm. And he just wasn't ready to do it. He just wasn't ready to do it. And one of the things is, you can't make people do what they're not ready to do.
Well, if he's still alive 5 years after the die, that he obviously wasn't ready. I mean, he seemed on death's door at the time. He truly did. But if he's still alive now, he definitely needed other kind of support than hospice support.
I think one of the main things you can do as a friend is just be witness to what their experience is. And this is very hard especially hard for men, to be able to hold space without trying to fix it, and man, that's hard. That is hard to do. But that's sometimes somebody just needs to be known, and seen in the experience they're having.
Yeah.
And to not mince words, I say the word die, death, you're on a short timeline. How much, and I also always say, yeah, and who knows, maybe I am too. So you're dying. Me too. I just don't, have a date. I could get hit by a gravel truck out walking the dogs tomorrow. We don't know. None of us knows the number of our days. And, the situation we're in with coronavirus right now puts that right in our face. We really don't know. So if we don't know, how do I want to live now? And I want to be the kind of guy who when it's my time to let go, that I don't have any unfinished business. And I don't think I do. One of the things.
So rare. I mean, that's really rare.
Well,
to be able to say that, but that's the goal. Yeah.
I have been involved for a number of years in a recovery program that has as one of its features going back through one's life and making an inventory of where I have hurt people and where I have left things incomplete and where I am out of integrity, and to fix those.
Yeah.
And there was one that in this coronavirus period, facing, hey, you know what? I could, I could get this illness, and who knows? It could accelerate really quickly. Is there something unfinished? For me, there was. And you probably don't know about this, Claire, but I have a son who I've never met.
Oh my God, no. New news.
Yeah. And there's reasons that I was not involved in his life, and I made a very, very deliberate and a decision with a lot of advice and it was suggested to me, either you be all in or you be all out, but you be consistent with whatever your decision is. And so I was consistent with that decision. But he's grown now. And so I reached out and said, I think it might be time for us to get to know each other. And I had some trepidation about that because his mother was someone that I needed to protect myself from for a variety of reasons.
Right.
But I just said, you know what, it's time to put on the big boy pants and get over that one. Yeah. And so we've started to communicate. Oh. So that's just, and it feels good. It feels really good to be having that little piece of incomplete business now on, in the process of being completed.
And the girls and Elizabeth are all part of the group? Yeah, great.
Right.
Great.
And the girls have not met him yet, but they have let him know that they are with open arms,
Oh, I mean, I'm so happy for you. I mean, it's just really
and it is a long story that, hey, podcast people, this is like Claire getting in some personal stuff here, but too bad. It's her podcast. She gets to do whatever she wants. But there are some reasons why now I am in a place to have a relationship with this young man, because short version of a long story, I came into the world thinking that my maleness was defective and harmful and not to be embraced. Wow. And it has taken me until very recently to get that healed and to the point where so my father wound needed to get healed before I can offer some healing to this young man who's obviously got a big honking father wound, So it's time. So sometimes having the idea that your death is imminent can really kind of light a little fire under you that has some benefit.
What I want to speak to about that, because it does help our listeners, I believe, because the truth is, and this is getting off friends, but the truth is that many people go to their last moments in life with tremendous emotional pain, which is worse than physical pain. Mm-hmm. Because they have that secret, they have that bit that's undone. There are real consequences to not looking at your life review and being completely honest with yourself, and hopefully at least one other person, and hopefully that person that it involves, and it's really part of the work that we do with people at the end of life. It's what we call just looking at your legacy. When you are up against that wall of death, you do have to turn around. The only thing you can do is turn around and look back. And it's just really emotional to have that passing that is free of pain and anxiety, to look at those emotional issues. And your story just perfectly points that out. And I certainly don't want you to go through any soon to die experience, but you're ready, man. You are ready, having dealt with that particular issue.
I think for one of the things that I've learned in the last few years is really come into focus. One of the biggest burdens that we carry in our life, one of the things that closes us off from the experience of love more than anything else is self-judgment. And most of us have a well of self-judgment that we've hidden from ourselves, so we don't even know that it's there, but the way that we blame and judge ourselves for our supposed misdeeds, many of which are entirely manufactured in our own mind.
But something that we all have.
Yes.
All have.
But to bring those into conscious awareness and be able to look and say, I have been blaming and judging myself for that my entire life, and that's not even mine. And to be able to let that go, that opens up the possibility of living with an open heart. And I just think that self-judgment piece is the thing that keeps more hearts closed than practically anything else.
I think that is a great life teaching for everybody. And honestly, this podcast did not go in any way, shape, or form the way I thought it was going to, but it was
kind of like my life.
No,
has not gone anything like I never started to said, I think I'll be a serial monogamist. That was not my plan.
No, so. But one of the things I have to say, and I'm going to end the podcast soon, but I just really want to say that, Beau, you're by vocation, just excel in your field, but your avocation is your life purpose. And I think your ability to speak to the heart and speak to God and spirituality, and it is so not dogma or lightweight. It's just like every time, and this is why I love you, every time we have a conversation about God, I just feel like my head's going to explode because of the truth of it and the reality of it. And if my listeners even get a touch of that, this has been just one of the best podcasts ever.
I got to say, Claire, it's the only thing that's interesting to me now. I mean, I was career obsessed for a lot of years, but this is the only thing that's interesting to me now. And now I want to just say something acknowledging you. You have such a wonderful way of approaching death and dying without a spiritual woo-woo air. You've always been such a down-to-earth person. And my friend who we spoke of, who has been, battling this cancer for a number of years. When I introduced him to you, he was just shaken by you. And I said, what? He says, that woman knows who she is. She has roots. He instantly trusted you because you're just you, and you have always your clarishness. You have always been just relentlessly Claire-like, and you have become more Claire-like over the years. And I think that is so cool.
Thank you, Beau. Thank you. That's feelings mutual completely.
Okay. I'm getting more Claire-like.
We can continue this conversation, but I'm gonna close it up for the podcast length purposes. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you offer the world. And you're just a dear, dear friend. And if there are people that listen to this podcast and they want to contact you directly, is it okay, number one, and how would they contact you directly?
I have a website, it's spokenword.com, and
Okay.
I'm pretty easy to find that way.
Okay.
And again, when I want to apologize for saying shit on your podcast.
Well, I think I doubled it and tripled it a few times for your benefit. So, okay, let me see where I'm gonna get off on the record. Pause recording. Tell the people bye.